I know for a fact that CFS failed my family.
Tonight, the child welfare system is brought up again at the National Inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
What is really needed is, especially with the mental health issues, is more support in the community.
The Senate hears what needs to be done to reduce violating federal inmates' human rights.
I just want to collect different pins from different areas that when I participate or in the games.
And a look into the pin trade at the Arctic Winter Games. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. The child welfare system was put in the spotlight during hearings in Thompson, Manitoba for the National Inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. The family of Marina Spence spoke for the first time about their sister who went missing while in the care of Child and Family Services. And as Brittany Hobson shows us, the family is still looking for answers and for healing.
But I knew that something was wrong because my heart is hurt.
For the first time in 28 years, Rita Thomas is sharing the story of her sister Marina Spence, who went missing in August 1990. There are no photos or mementos. All Rita has are her words to keep the memory of Marina alive. And she's using her testimony to call for justice for her family.
But I know for a fact that CFS failed my family.
CFS took Rita and her 5 siblings from their home community of South Indian Lake after their mother died. Rita and Marina were placed in separate homes in Thompson. One night the sisters went out drinking. Rita woke up in a jail cell and Marina was nowhere to be found. CFS told Rita that Marina had gone to Leaf Rapids. After a few days, she decided to report her sister missing to RCMP. When she got there, she wasn't allowed in the station.
After I reported her through the intercom there, they came and got a statement off me, and that was it.
11 years later, Marina's remains were found near the Burntwood Bridge in Thompson. The news destroyed Rita.
I wasn't there to voice for her because I was busy drinking, not caring about anything, not caring about myself, my children.
She believes if CFS allowed Marina to stay in the community with her grandmother, she would still be alive today.
My granny was more than capable of looking after us because she was our main caregiver. She looked after us all the time. And then her finding out Marina was missing, it broke her heart.
Deborah Morasti is a family friend. She says there needs to be more supports for parents when kids are apprehended.
Is to have these supports at a community level, especially to have qualified, trained social workers, to have an office where the community members can go to find out what their rights are, to find out, what the options are for them, to get their children back.
In the meantime, speaking out for the first time has finally given Rita a chance to move forward.
I'm just ready to heal. I've never got any kind of healing for this, but that's what I'm going to do for myself.
Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Thompson.
Today, the Quebec inquiry into relations between Indigenous peoples and certain public services heard about the financing for policing in Aboriginal communities. Richard Coleman, Director of Aboriginal Relations at the Ministry of Public Security, said that within the tripartite agreement, Quebec contributed $29.3 million in 2017-2018 for a total of nearly $61 million. But Chief Steve Mathias says a lot more needs to be done.
Public security falls under that justice system, and I hope someday that we will be, provided with all the resources needed that is required for us to meet the needs of our communities. And basically, I think that's what each community is asking for. We're not trying to get rich off the tripartite agreement. We just want to make sure that we provide adequate services to our people.
The Senate Committee on Human Rights has resumed its study of the way inmates of federal prisons are treated. Today, witnesses discussed access to mental health and addiction services. Fred Sanford is vice president of the John Howard Society. He says large numbers of people going into the federal corrections system have addictions issues.
They end up going in the justice system and going to jail just basically because there is no other appropriate method to deal with them. And we have to remember that the safety of the public has to be the genuine concern. But in my opinion, what is really needed is, especially with the mental health issues, is more support in the community to say, catch these people, deal with them before they get to the point where their activities end them in the justice system.
Today we put the upcoming legalization of recreational cannabis in focus. Some of the players in the industry. Highlights from the live show are coming up after the break. Here's a look at Thursday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. +2 in Charlottetown, 4 above in Fredericton. -8 in Nain, -2 in Happy Valley, Goose Bay. -1 in Saguenay, -4 in Chibougamau. +2 in London, +1 in Sarnia, 4 above in Windsor. -1 in Sioux Lookout, -2 in Thunder Bay. -12 on Thursday in Churchill. -3 in Gimli Harbor with snow. 0 in Dauphin and Brandon with snow. In Saskatchewan, that snow continues in Yorkton with a high of 0. -1 in Uranium City, -3 in Stony Rapids. Welcome back. APTN has been investigating Kanina Sue Turtle's death for several weeks and recently reported she filmed her death inside a foster home owned and operated by Tikanagan, an Indigenous child welfare agency. Kenneth Jackson has been reporting on the story and joins us now from Ottawa. Kenneth, thanks so much for joining us. Can you remind us again what you've learned about Kanina?
Kanina Sue Turtle died October 29, 2016 in Sioux Lookout, Ontario, Northern Ontario. She died in the back room of a foster home that was owned and operated by Tikanagan Child and Family Services. It's an Indigenous, it's an Indigenous child welfare agency. She filmed her death, and on that video, which I've seen, she was alone for over 45 minutes before someone notices her. What we've learned also is that she was in the hospital multiple times prior to that, and also tried to attempt on her death the day before, also on tape, which I viewed as well. We've also learned that there was another suicide attempt in the days prior to her death, besides the one on the 28th, the day before, because she walked around, and forgive me for this, but she walked around with the bruising on her neck. I've seen the visual proof of this. So we've learned all this about Kanina, but there's based on that, I was trying to find some more information on her death and what was going on, and we've learned much more information.
Yeah, it's a disturbing case, Kenneth, though. What have you learned since digging into this all?
Well, you know, when I talked to her mom, she said to me, just abruptly said to me, she goes, they told me that, Tikanagan told me that she was in a so-called suicide pact, but her mother didn't believe it. So I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. Let me see what I can find out. And so what I ended up finding out was that her death is connected to 2 others at least. Jolynn Winter died on January 8, 2017 in Wakapika First Nation. It made headlines. It was big news because that nation had noticed the suicide pact in the summertime, but was denied funding. Jolynn, before being in Wakapika, at the time of her death, was in Sioux Lookout, and she was very close with with Kanina. There's visual proof of them being together. I also have a video of Jolene attempting her suicide just before Kanina's death. It's awful. It's a terrible thing to hear, the sound of it. But I also connected Kanina's death to another girl from Poplar Hill First Nation, where Kanina's from, or was from, and that's Amy Owen. She died April 17th, 2017 in an Ottawa group home. And when she was moved to Ottawa, or to Prescott originally, just before Kanina's death, Tikanagan told the group home owner and staff there that they suspect that she was in a suicide pact. So within 6 months, 3 girls were dead, all suspected of planning their death. And so that's essentially what we have. I have other names potentially that could be part of that, but I haven't been able to confirm that yet.
So Ken, what's being done here? What's the agency's response been to any of this?
Well, the agency has no response. Like, I mean, none. I haven't heard. When I told them that I knew of the suicide pact and that they knew based on our information, they haven't responded. It's been over 9 days. Any response I have got from the agency has been they won't talk out of respect for the family. Well, the family wants them to talk. The family wants answers. And they've asked me, or APTN, to try and find them out, or to find them. We've been trying. So that's taken me to the chief coroner of Ontario. And I've talked to him, and he's been conducting what he's calling an expert panel review of 11 deaths in care. So kids that were living in group homes, foster homes, agency-operated homes like Kanina's. He's looked at 11 files and found problems with them already. So he's expanded his review of those deaths, and they're ongoing. And they include Amy Owen, and they include Kanina. I believe they also include Jolene Winter, because he's been to Wakapika. He told me himself. Essentially, what I've been told by the Ministry from Ontario is that I'm asking for a response of what, is there a response to Tikanagan's responsibility for Kanina's death and the other girls? And they've essentially told me the coroner is reviewing all of it. So I believe the coroner's investigating these deaths again, because the coroner always investigates a death, but he's re-reviewing them, so to speak. And maybe in a few months we'll have some answers, I guess, I hope, into what happened into these 3 girls' deaths.
A long wait for the families. Kenneth, how's Kanina's mother holding up?
Quite upset. She's, they just lost power there for the reserve for 3 days. They had no power, no electricity, no light. They had no phone. But, she wants answers. But the last thing she told me was, she said that, I'm not giving up. I want to know what happened. I want to know why it happened. I want to know why my daughter was left alone for 45 minutes to film her suicide.
Kenneth, we're going to have to leave it there, but appreciate you looking into this story and for taking time to speak with us about it today.
Thanks for having me.
You can read much more of Kenneth Jackson's work on this by going to aptnnews.ca. The legalization of cannabis is getting closer and closer. Today we put that topic in focus to discuss what it could mean for some First Nations, what business opportunities there could be, and what some entrepreneurs have already started.
When we made the investment, we didn't look at it only as a local enterprise. What we did is make the investment so that we would be participating as the majority shareholder, the largest private shareholder on operations right across Canada where jurisdictions allow. So we are applying for a number of RFPs right across the country where jurisdictions allow. So this is going to be, as we say, the Tim Hortons of cannabis, if you will, is what we are actually pursuing. And with the initial investment we've made, it's already returned itself over 400%. So we've almost paid off our initial investment already.
I think that the market will open itself up towards having craft growers, almost like you have like microbreweries and beer and small-scale wineries, because the cannabis user is not a user that wants to use Budweiser when they can smoke Dom Perignon. And that's the difference between LPs and craft growing. Mm-hmm. And people really do want to get into this business. There's a poverty issue in this community that in other communities, for that example, for that matter, that we need to have more of a say in it, more of a control. But going LP is not necessarily how I see it going.
And I think really what you want to avoid, and you really want, and I've seen this before with tobacco and with fuel, really you're recirculating money within the community. I think there really needs to be more along the lines of what Pasquia-Cree Nation is doing with access to new money. We've seen the success of that in Saskatchewan with SIGA, for instance, right? That's not, you're not recirculating a dollar within the community. It's all new money that's coming in that's providing most of the benefits. And that's the key, right? It's the finances. There's no dignity in poverty, absolutely none. Our housing, our infrastructure, our child care, our ability to provide recreation, for instance, our ability to send a kid to school when they want and where they want is compromised because we don't have the money.
And you can watch the full live episode of In Focus by visiting our website. The traditional high kick record has been shattered at the Arctic Winter Games, and it's video you don't want to miss. That and other highlights from the games are coming up right after the break. Here's a look at the rest of Thursday's weather forecast. +1 in snow in Peace River, +1 in Fort McMurray, +4 in Red Deer, Calgary, and Lethbridge. On the west coast, a bit of rain, 7 above in Vancouver. Snow and -8 in Fort St. John. In Yukon, -11 in Old Crow, -14 in Rock River. In NWT, snow and -9 in Fort Resolution. -29 in Sax Harbor, -25 in Paulatuck. To Nunavut, -15 in Arviette, -16 in Whale Cove, -32 in Resolute on Thursday. Welcome back, and you'll be glad you stuck around because we're off to the Arctic Winter Games. Spectators from the north and south crowd to watch traditional sports like arm pull and kneel jump. But one Northwest Territories athlete has an extra advantage being so close to home and family. Our reporter Tamara Pimentel has more.
A hush falls over the crowd. It takes a lot of focus to compete at this level, and a lot of practice to make the kick. Veronica McDonald is competing in her hometown of Fort Smith, Northwest Territories. Traditional games such as the 2-foot high kick are passed down through generations. McDonald's mother, Mika, has won 34 medals in the 10 Arctic Winter Games she's competed in. The mother-daughter duo has even competed together.
That's pretty amazing. It's a special gift we got from these games. Yeah.
Mika was trained by her father and passed on what she knew to her daughter. The 2-foot high kick is played across the circumpolar territories. Athletes must kick the sealskin ball while keeping both legs and feet together and ensure they don't injure themselves on the landing. This is Veronica's third and final try. She misses by a hair, but still kicks an impressive 6'4" and earns a silver ulu with her mother by her side.
I don't know. We're just kind of used to it now.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You know, I don't know. It's just been so many years, you know. Like, it's my 7th Arctic Winter Games, and so I think we were competing.
High kicked together.
We high kicked together about 2 games.
I was a senior, and she was a junior.
When Veronica isn't wowing audiences, she is traveling to schools across the north, demonstrating Arctic game techniques. Her athleticism and community spirit was recognized at the AWG South Slave Games this week.
They asked me that you've been nominated to hold the torch, and you know you've been picked, and I was just super surprised. You know, never expected that. Blown away, excited, and so getting there was more so surreal.
While the outcome for today's Alaskan 1-foot high kick event that Veronica is participating in is uncertain, one thing that is for sure, the McDonalds will be there together. Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Fort Smith.
If you think kicking 6'4" is impressive, hang around. But now the Arctic Winter Games can be a nail-biting experience for more than just the athletes. Our reporter Charlotte Mort Jacobs takes a look at the inside culture of pin trading.
The books are out at the bargaining table, and eager collectors have their game faces on. Pin trading at the Arctic Winter Games is the unofficial 20th sport, taking place in the same venues as high kick and hockey. Victor Marie knows his pins. As a veteran collector, he says the art of collecting is all about trading duplicate or less valuable pins to get what you want.
I just want to collect different pins from different areas that when I participate in the Games and when they come here for my little granddaughter that is only 10 months now, but I'll give these to her when she grows up.
Murray has been part of the Games for decades. He shows off his favorite, representing his South Slave NWT home.
It's the new NWT and Hay River together.
Haggling can be exhausting sometimes, and the hardest customers are the kids.
Well, they're tough. They're tough. There was one running around here. She was tough. He said, "You're driving me crazy." And I said, "No." I said, You go and come back later." But she's tough. And then she came back later and she said, "I don't need your pin. I got what I want."
But when you get the pins you want, you are a decorated athlete. Priscilla Lapine says they won't trade pins for money.
Pin trading is about hustling, so it's about meeting people, bargaining a little bit, and having fun. There's lots of laughter going on, and you get to know people. Sometimes there's a bit of a language barrier, so you're using sign language, pointing at pins.
She even takes her pins to social media.
I took pictures of some of the older pins that I have, and then some of the newer ones from these games, and I've noticed that people have asked me questions about it and seemed more interested in the games because of the pictures that I posted on pins that I'm collecting.
Over at the hockey arena, Vanessa Sanglis shows off her goods. She's been collecting since the Vancouver Olympics.
The USA and Russia, they started liking my pins, and there's one from China, so I thought I'd give them like a, not to trade for anything, just to give them, just to remember by in the Northwest Territories, just to represent what we are.
Now she hopes to share with newcomers to the Games.
Do you want to trade this pin for anything? Sure. I'm going to go with anyone. Sure.
And just like that, I have a new pin at Arctic Winter Games.
As athletes compete, so too will pin collectors. Charlotte Mort Jacobs, APTN National News, Fort Smith.
Pretty cool. I used to have a pretty great pin collection myself. Now back to the 2-foot high kick. And one of the athletes has set an Arctic Winter Games record. All day yesterday, spectators, coaches, families, and friends crowded around competition grounds in Fort Smith to watch the traditional 2-foot high kick. The game saw competitors running and kicking their feet over their head. Rick Mikhai of Team Alaska kicked 7.4 feet, breaking an AWG record set in 1988.
It feels amazing to achieve something, but it feels better to just be surrounded by these people and have everyone pumping me up and have faith in me. So my ancestors did it, so it's an honor to represent them in this way.
That is truly incredible. And that is your APTN National News for this Wednesday. For more news, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. You'll find more on the Arctic Winter Games there, as well as the entire episode of today's In Focus. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.